Hello and welcome to the United Devil channel with me, your host JB. I hope we're all doing really well this afternoon. I'm buoyed by the news of United's bid for Benjamin Šeško. Now this has been confirmed by Fabrizio and David Ornstein, and pretty much what we've been saying on here. We've been quite chilled for the longest time on here. Now, one of the common themes that I've found, or what we've spoken about on this channel for sure, one thing I will say before I go any further is we do have the most amazing channel and community here. There are some amazing chats. We come up with our views and opinions and come at it from a logical but also respectful position. So if you do want to get into the chat, then I am not a dictator. I try to let you have your views. As long as we're all respectful of each other's views, then that's fantastic. When we have some legends in chat, and I've got a big smile on my face because there's already a legend in the chat. So Tulip plays. Hello, Jimmy Butler. Absolutely fantastic, and thank you for that, legend of the chat. Now, what I wanted to do, so now I'm feeling better. I do apologise if I'm sniffing all over this as well, but I've not been feeling the best, but I'm feeling better now. So I thought what it would be nice to do is maybe go over some of the kind of pre-season stuff. Arnold Kazuma, and I apologise if I get your name wrong. Hello to Manchester. Exactly, we are the best club in the world, best channel in the world. So what I wanted to do, I was looking at some stats and do some comparisons between different players. Now, and I've been really surprised myself now since I've been looking at this, and to be fair to Sesko, I've kind of known about a play for a while, but I wanted to do a little bit more of research into it. Do you watch basketball at all? He's a great player from NBA. I don't. I used to watch NBA back in the day, but not for a very long time. So I have no idea. You're clearly smarter than I am. So there you go. So what I wanted to do was go over, because in this chat is that there is lots of ups and downs. Okay, there are lots of different opinions on strikers and where we think that we should go. I, for one, said I preferred Watkins on occasion. Other people just like, it's a waste of money for Sesko, and we've kind of floated these things around. So what I wanted to do was go over some of the stats, and these may surprise you, and why I actually think that Sesko is a superstar, and why I actually think now that he is the right choice, and why I now understand why Arsenal pursued him as their number one target, why Newcastle are pursuing him so hard. Arnold says, are you sure that we will get Sesko? Now, Arnold, I will say this, and we've been consistent on here. So Tulip, who's in there as well, I think we've been on the same path on this, and I think she will be on my side when I say that I went early on this one. Whereby I've always believed that he will come to us. I believe that we've done a deal already, and I've believed this since last week. I believed it since Ross Harwood came out with it, and I've been pushing him, and I've given him credit on this, and I've been pushing this the whole way through, that from a logical perspective this makes total sense why we have picked him. Newcastle put a bid in last week, and I believe the week before that as well. And if he was going to be a Newcastle player, he would be a Newcastle player. Now, I understand why they are pushing him so hard, and I understand why we will now equally match that. So we have said, remain calm, relax, chill, and we put that, and we've essentially been saying this the whole way through. So there are those of us who want Sesko, some of us who are on the fence. So hopefully we're going to go through some stats now, and you may be able to see why Sesko and why my opinion has shifted on here. Now, I do have my views, you have yours, and of course we can aim to like have our own views. Isn't that Sesko decision is made by today? It should be. I'm hoping so. Premier League 200. So let's go through some of these stats. So I've been looking at comparisons between Šeško, and I've compared Šeško to Haaland. Okay. Now the reasoning for that is because obviously, you know, you got to compare him to the best in the Premier League if we're looking for the best of the best, and then comparing him to others. So I've compared him to Haaland. I've compared him to Ekitike. I've compared Šeško to Jackson, compared him to Watkins, and compared him to Gyokeres, and did a comparison to Alexander Isak as well. So without further ado, I'm going to compare him first of all to Watkins. Now Watkins is the one that I initially preferred him to because of his goals. Now, in terms of age, Šeško is 22, only just turned 22 in May. Ollie Watkins is 29 and will be 30 in December. Now, I need to prefix this with this is a total career. Okay, so this is careers until now. So Watkins does have 7 years on him, and of course, Šeško would have to get to that age first. But as a comparison type, as of now, this is just to give you an overview as to the kind of numbers and the stats that we are talking about. So, Šeško, to bear in mind, so Šeško's figures will stay the same, and obviously the comparative ones will change over time. So, can we see two? That's a good question. Can you see two? Do you know what? Give me a second, and I will do that for you. I think I should be able to do that. Yeah. So give me a second. That's a very good idea, my friend. And I will do that for you as well. Cool. Okay. Okay. So for these, I'm going to use transfer market, and that's what I'm going to use for these. Okay. So let's do that. Let's grab this. Okay. Okay. Let's do that. Okay. So we're going to look at Hugh. No, that's Ekitike. We'll look at. Let's look at Watkins first. Where are we? Okay, so we're going to look at Watkins first. Okay, so this is on the fly. Take that down for a second. Okay, we're doing some stat comparison live. Stat comparison live with JB. Let's do this. Okay, perfect. Right, so I'm going to save that there. Do that there. Change this over. Okay. Grab that. Cool. Okay. I'm going to transition that over. I'll make this a little bit bigger as well. Okay. Okay. So, let's take a look at this. So, I might make it a little bit smaller, actually. Screen transition over. There you go. So we can now all look at this together. Okay, so I'm not using StreamYard now. I'm using OBS at the moment. So let's take a look. Get this on screen and let's take a look. So as you can see, if we look at overall goals or overall appearances. Let's have a little look. See what she's saying. I like that. I do. I like that. Okay, so I will save that for next time. So Tulip Plays very kindly sent me that. and I will use that for the next one. So let's just use this as an overall view for now. So let me know if you can see it in the chat. Hopefully you should be able to see it right now. Wagid Stelboom says, I hope you're well. It's my birthday. My birthday is for Sesko. Happy birthday. I hope you're having a great day, whatever you are doing. So, Chip Plays, legend of the chat, has very kindly sent me head-to-head, which I will probably use the next time. So, let's see how we get on with this, and let's do a comparison. So, as a brief overview, if we're looking at this, and again, to prefix this as this is basically up-to-date players, right? So if we're looking at appearances, obviously Watkins has 444 compared to Šeško's 224. 162 goals for Watkins, 100 goals for Šeško, meaning that Šeško has a goal to time of 127 minutes. I see, but I don't understand. And a goal contribution in terms of minutes every 127 compared to Watkins' 217. So as a comparison, and of course Watkins, to be fair, his goals are in the Premier League, but as an overview there for somebody who's 22 or ready to have 100 goals, I think that's pretty good already, and I'm very encouraged. Now, of course, the last 2 seasons, the numbers for Watkins have obviously been absolutely insane, really, and he's been second to none. But as a comparison, just to give you an overview, and it doesn't mean to say that when Sesko comes to the Premier League, that's going to be it. But I think for me that gives a good indication as to an initial start of how good Sesko actually is. So let me just grab another one here. Okay, let's grab that, save that. Okay. So I don't know if you've seen that, if you can see that. So I think that was a I'm going to grab Hugo Ekitike's now. Okay, so let's grab that. Okay, cool. Let's see where we are with that. Okay. So, Ollie Watkins, so in terms of, and of course we do have to caveat that with that, Sesko is obviously only 22 years old. Watkins is nearly 30. So, welcome back. So Bobby says hello. Very impressive from Sesko. He's 20 and all the season scored 27 in 64 games. Sesko has a goal contribution every 145 minutes in the Bundesliga, while Watkins has a goal every 203. He's not even close to his prime yet. Exactly that. So the purpose of this is to give us an indication, and of course you get your stats wherever you get them. Now, Sam says United. So let's take a little look now at Ekitike. So let's do that one. I'm going to transition that over. So bearing in mind Liverpool paid, was it 74 million for him. So again, Šeško's stats remain the same. Now Ekitike has obviously played slightly less games. Ekitike is 23, so he's a year older. He has played slightly less games. Now, the thing that I will say here on Šeško's for Šeško here is he's played 28 times in the Champions League. Now, I don't think that can be discounted. I think 28 games in the Champions League at 22 years old, I think is phenomenal. Chelsea are clearing out this world because it's too full. Total package for Ekitike, 79 million. Exactly. So when we're looking through this, and you can clearly see it on screen now that Ekitike has scored 50 goals in 151 games, 25 assists, so averaging a goal in terms of minutes, 179 minutes. So when you're thinking about that comparison for a player who's a year older, for a player who's not got as much experience in the Champions League, has scored half the amount of goals. Yes, he has played less games, but for him at this current pace to score the same goals as Šeško, you would be talking over 302 games. So when you start looking at these stats, and we can look at the Bundesliga and we can start looking at the leagues that they've played in, when you now start to look at these facts and figures in front of your face, it really starts to become clear actually how good Šeško is. And you can see why Arsenal have been fighting for Šeško and initially wanted him as their striker. Why Newcastle are pushing hard on this deal as well. So I think the next place to go, and I think the interesting place to go for me will be Gyokeres. I'm just going to grab Gyokeres' stats and we can start taking a little look at Gyokeres and see how Šeško compares to Gyokeres. Let's grab that. Okay. Grab that in there. Save that. Okay. So let's grab Gyokeres. Now this one is interesting to me. Now the transfer market stats. I'm just using this as an overview, and I'm sure there are other stat sites that are slightly better or probably more up to date. But as an overview, I do think this is a interesting one to use. So I'm going to grab Gyokeres' stats, and I can see why Arsenal went for him. Just grab these stats up. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. Okay. Transition this over. Okay, so I had to cut the top bit out. So once again, the Šeško stats are to the left, and we can all see this. Now, Gyokeres' stats, I'm going to see if I can slightly make this bigger and better. Let's grab that. That's full fit in there. Yeah, it's better. Here we go. Okay, so shit places. Gyokeres is a different level, but it's the Portuguese league, so it doesn't do much outside the box. So let's look at Gyokeres' stats. So again, have to bear in mind Gyokeres is slightly older. He's been in different leagues. Now, when we are looking at goals and we're looking at games to goals, of course, Šeško still hasn't played those amount of games. So when he does, those numbers could come down as well. So when we are looking at Champions League as well, so let's look at Champions League. So in terms of that, Gyokeres hasn't played as many games in the Champions League. So Šeško is more experienced in terms of that as well. If you actually look at the goals per minutes as well, Šeško comes out better already. Now, yes, Gyokeres has scored 220 goals. Now, again, for Šeško to get up to those sorts of numbers, he still needs to play. He still needs to score. Of course, he was in the Championship. He was in the Portuguese league. So Šeško does have numbers to get to 220 goals. But already, Šeško's already up to 100 goals in minutes per game, 127, and Gyokeres is 135. So he's very, very comparable. He's younger. Gyokeres is 27. So he's 5 years younger as well, a full 5 years. So you can see why, or I can see why now Arsenal Arsenal were looking at him. It makes sense now for me why Arsenal were looking at him as their number one. So it makes complete sense to me now why he was Arsenal's choice. Exactly. And that is exactly the point. So at 22 years old, you can see he's already an absolute beast. Now, obviously, he's got to get better. And playing in the Premier League, of course, he's not played here yet, but Gyokeres hasn't played there either. So he definitely is better right now. But Šeško, as you say there, will be that guy in a couple of years' time. So transition out of that. So you can already see. So what's interesting really is for Gyokeres makes sense for them as they're in exactly Tulip, and that's exactly why Watkins made sense. Why Gyokeres makes sense, because that is what they need now. They need the Sesko, not then, but the Sesko of now, so they can score those goals. But what's really interesting to the eye is that when you actually look at the numbers and you look at Sesko comparative, it is quite. You can see now why teams are trying to chase him. Now, Ekitike for me is the interesting one. Why Liverpool, I would have thought, would have gone for him, but if they're going to go for an Isak, then potentially why. So another player that I have got up, and we can look at those stats as well, is Isak's stats. Now, Isak for me is the one, and I can see why Newcastle would go for a like comparison. And obviously, Isak is older again. And let's get that up. Let's get Isak's stats up. Okay. Let's see where we are on that. I think that's big enough. Cool. Okay, transition that over. So now if we look at Isak and see where we are with that. So again, Isak is 25. So Isak for his age, I think is a good striker, but he's that next stage on, nearly 2.5 years on. So this is where Sesko could be when he's 25 years old. So if we are now looking at those stats, and we're looking at, so again, Isak has played 324 games. Sesko has played 224 compared to Isak's 324 games. So exactly 100 games more than Sesko. Let's come back to that. Where are we again? He's played exactly 100 games more than Sesko. He scored 44 goals more. Sesko's got 26 assists. Isak's got 30. And Sesko's roughly, again, 127 minutes per goal. And Isak is 151. So, of course, a lot of that now does come from the Premier League. And again, when we're looking at things like the Champions League, Sesko, one of the things for me that really stands out is the Champions League experience. Not that that really matters as such, but the fact Sesko has already got 28 games in the Champions League and he's already prepared to come to us where we don't have European football, for me, does speak a lot about the player. So again, Isak is 151 minutes per goal, and you have to factor in the Premier League as well. And Benjamin Šeško is 127 minutes per goal. So for me, which number are they going to give him? Šeško has a better goals per minute than every single striker signed in the Premier League. He's just turned, and that is exactly it. And that is exactly my point. So, and this becomes really an interesting point. And I'll transition out of this for a second as well. So that really becomes an interesting point, because we're looking at signing this striker for £69 million. Now, Liverpool, they shelled out big money. I fell in love with Sesko seeing stats. I always want Chris, but now Sesko seems better, and his stats are harder league. And this is why you can see. So it's really easy, and without going into, and again, I will be fair, and I won't be a hypocrite on this. Now, stats can lie. I've worked with stats for a long time. I've even said that Fernandes pads out stats. At the end of the day, you can make stats look good or as bad. Doesn't mean that Fernandes is not a fantastic player. Sometimes on the eyes he's not great, but stats at the end of the day don't necessarily lie. But it gives you an indication of how good a player is. Now, it cannot be denied that Sesko is a phenomenal talent at 22 years old, and for £69 million, maybe up to 73. And when you compare that to Watkins, when you compare that now to some of these other deals and the Premier League strikers, potentially at that age, you can now see why United are pushing Sesko hard. You can see why Newcastle are pushing Sesko hard. You can now see why Newcastle want this deal, because if you look at Isak, very sort of comparable now. So Sesko in 2 to 3 years' time, he could be so much better, so much more of a phenomenal player at 22. So when you look at those stats, when you look at the comparables, when you kind of start looking about, 28 games in the Champions League at 22 years old, you can't buy that experience. That is experience that you can't buy. That is ridiculous experience, and you cannot replicate that experience. You cannot buy that experience. So not only are we getting a striker whose goals to game are pretty much better than a lot of the strikers in the league now or coming to the league, and you can argue, of course, it is coming from the Bundesliga, and yes, there has been comments in here to say that he is not as good as, I can't think of his name now. You said save this as an, you should save this as an audio as a podcast on YouTube. That's not a bad idea, my friend. But as you can clearly see now, is when you start to look at the stats and you kind of start to look at the player, this is when you really get a feel for how good a player is. Now, I had some idea of how good Sesko was, but it wasn't only until I started to really delve into the stats, I started doing a couple of player comparisons, then it only becomes apparent. Now, what the other one I wanted to, so there's two more I wanted to do as a comparison. So the next one is Jackson from Chelsea, and I do find this one probably one of the funnier ones. So I'm going to do a Jackson, and this for me is one of the funniest ones. This really does make me laugh. So I suggest, if you're standing up, I suggest you sit down. Chelsea won, I think it's £80 million for him. So what I suggest you, if you've got anything in your mouth and you don't want to choke, I suggest that you spit that out. If you're standing up, then I suggest you hold on to something, because it's hilarious, and you wonder why Chelsea, I just cannot understand why Chelsea get the money that they do. So let's do a comparison. So Sesko and Nicholas Jackson. Ready? So let's compare the two stats. So Nicholas Jackson. Okay. So hopefully we can all see this. Hope for the best. He chooses us. So let's do this, shall we? So let's take a look at Nicholas Jackson. Okay. So games, 173 games compared to Sesko's 124. No Champions League games in there, and that's where we're at. He's got 51 goals in 173 games. 27 assists. That's not bad. And I can't really argue with that. 27 assists, which is pretty good, giving him 224 minutes per goal. And Chelsea want 80 million for Jackson. And I leave it there for you to look at that. Chelsea clearing out the squad because they don't have space in the dressing room is crazy. Exactly. So, excuse me. So when Chelsea are looking at 80 million now, clearly it's really easy to find out these stats. Now, I do not believe for a second that clubs do not have their they have their analysis team, and they have all their computerized and whatever else they have in their squads, and they have their stat men. Now, just a simple guy with a PC, and we can figure out already how much each players are worth. So when you are looking at these stats, and Jackson is potentially mentioned in these stats, then what you can do is you can reference back to this video, and you can basically laugh at the fans, because at £80 million, that is an absolute joke. So again, he's played 173 games for Chelsea, scored 51 goals, 27 assists is not bad. 27 assists is not bad, and a goal every 224 minutes. So I think we can agree that that is definitely not the striker for us. So don't forget, obviously, if you're liking the things that we do, please don't forget to like, favourite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It gets you, it's free. You can come into the chat. This chat is one of the best chats. It is just an amazing chat. As I say, I'm not a dictator. I try not to tell you how to think, say, or do. I think having a different opinion, I think is really, really important. Some of the opinions on here do make me think about my own opinions. Doesn't mean to say that I'm going to change them necessarily, but that's the whole point. Is it causes a debate? It causes, that's the whole point of it. This is why we should be doing. And exactly, this is mad. So Sesko has played 28 times in the Champions League already, which is crazy. Now, the other comparison I'm going to make is to Haaland. Now, you can already tell the Haaland numbers are going to be crazy, right? But just as a sort of comparison, and just to show you, just to be fair, I think it's really important to be balanced and taper our expectations as well to some degree, to understand what we are getting and what we're not. So to bear in mind that Haaland is obviously a proper striker, and when I say that, I mean he is something else. So let's see. Let me do a comparison to Haaland, and hopefully you can see that as well. So let's do a transition. So this is Haaland. Now, Haaland is 25, so there are 2 years between them. And as you can see from the stats, Haaland is just a different level of player. So this is more so to be balanced and to be equal, and just say, look, as much as he is the best coming into the league, there are levels, hopefully, for him to go up to and aspire to, but at the same time, Haaland is a different story. So Haaland's played 329 games compared to 224. Haaland scored 259 goals, which is absolutely ridiculous. Of course, Sesko scored 100. He has 57 assists, which in itself, for what he does, to bear in mind, he is actually in an amazing team as well. So let's not discount that. He has played, which if you think about it, right, Haaland has played in the Bundesliga for teams that have been in the Champions League, for City as well. He's played 48 times in the Champions League, and Šeško's only played 20 games less. So I think the Champions League thing is a huge thing. So he scores a goal every about 92 minutes, obviously compared to Šeško's 127. So, when we are looking at stats, and we have to be equal and we have to be fair and say, we are getting a talent potential who's going to come into the league, who's pretty much better than most strikers of his age, better than a lot of the strikers who are coming into the league. But we should be tempering slightly. We should temper slightly our expectations, because ultimately there is another striker in there called Haaland. So, as a positive, what that could mean is that, if Šeško, there's no harm in coming into this league and trying to replicate that. Will he replicate Haaland? I don't think he will do. But at the same time, there's no reason, or I think it only makes a better player to have levels and aspirations to go up to. Now, the other one I wanted to do a comparative with, and I'll grab that quickly as well, and this may be it's not as bad as you might think, is Rasmus Hojlund. So let me grab Rasmus Hojlund stats. Grab those. Save that. Okay. Let's grab a bit of Hojlund. Okay. So I've got Rasmus Hojlund's stats now. Compared to, so I think, to be fair to Hojlund, is when you're thinking about Hojlund and we're comparing him to some other players, have to bear in mind that obviously he's been here for 2 years. He's obviously not been in the best of teams, and I actually don't think Hojlund's stats are that bad. To be fair, they're not brilliant, but let's take a little look at Hojlund. So they're not, when you look at his stats, and bearing in mind Rasmus is a little bit older, still 22 years old. Šeško is 22 years old as well. So what are we saying in the chat? Tensu's in there as well. If we get players, we'll go to the Premier League trophy. I hope so. He's only 22. Never played in this country before, so 15 Premier League goals is fair. He's just hit double figures, so exactly. Not this year, maybe in a couple of years. Exactly. So if we look at Hojlund's stats now, let's take a look at that. So we can 14 goals, and it's tragic. Let's be fair. Yeah, it's not the best. It really isn't the best. And when we're looking at career goals overall, and we've got to take some of the sort of other goals out. Yeah, it is not fantastic. And the 189, but compared to the Jacksons of this world, I even now I would still take Hojlund over a Jackson. So, I think that Sesko, depending on what Hojlund does, I think I think for competition wise, I think there is a definitely an opportunity for Hojlund to be pushed by a Sesko, and that is sort of what I'm hoping for. So looking at Hojlund's stats there, it is a sad sight to see. The reading of those is obviously not the best. And again, I'm just checking to see if anything's happening as we are speaking. I am expecting stuff to come through really quickly. No, nothing as of yet. So we've sort of been through those stats and looking at that. So I'd be interested now to what you think about Sesko. Has that possibly changed your mind on him now, seeing those sort of stats that have come through? Does it confirm what you've been thinking about the player? Does it so Jackson is a bad finisher. He does everything else well. Haaland is a bad finisher and does nothing well. Jackson makes some good runs and can dribble, hold it up, create some chances. Yeah, I can't really disagree with that. Maybe I'm blinkered and trying to push the Hojlund case. I think for Hojlund, I think I would like to see him for another season with Sesko, finding it out for Sesko. But I can't be a hypocrite. I can't remember on what video it was, but I did say that a bigger club, and I will be true to this as well, a bigger club would have got rid of Hojlund so far, and I said that I would do the same. So if somebody came in with a big money offer, something decent like 40 million, then I probably would let him go for that. However, we then do need another striker. We cannot, I don't think, experimenting like we did in the last game with not having a recognised striker up front, I just don't think that experiment will work, and I think that we need to get another striker. So it really does depend on what it is Amorim's planning to do with the strikers. Is he going to get a backup striker? Calvert-Lewin, I am still of the opinion that Calvert-Lewin is potentially still hanging around as a backup striker. Calvert-Lewin is not for me, even as a backup striker. I'd rather Vardy. But that's where we are. So, in my humble opinion now, I think that Sesko's definitely the way to go. 22 years old, I do believe that we are getting a potential top European striker for the next however many years. Let's not forget, at 22 years old, he's played 28 Champions Leagues games. I mean, that's something, that experience playing against top level professionals, you cannot buy that experience. Mark Stewart says soon Sesko done get a goalkeeper. Hojlund can't even control football. Is Sesko Amorim choice or board? I believe that it is I think it's a board. I think it's I can't remember his name now. I think it is a sort of half and half. So I think it's part of the strategic part. So I think it was split, and then I do think ultimately Amorim does have a say on it. So I think they've all been convinced. And looking at those stats, I think once you see those stats, or once you see a stat like that, and a comparison to what's out there, I'm not unconvinced as to that's probably what's happened. So Amarin, I think, will like this player. I am still not convinced what we're going to do with another striker. I still think we need another striker in there. Who that is, I don't know. We now need to move on. To a midfielder. I'd even argue that a goalkeeper is probably just as pivotal and as important. What goalkeeper, I don't know. Lemens is an easier deal to do, but I don't know why we wouldn't have done that already. I think there are goalkeeper choices out there, and on that one, logically, I think that we would go for a Lemens on that one or a Martinez loan. Maybe we go down that road, but Lemens for me is the one that I think that we've spoken about that, and there's too many indications that we would go for that. Also, why that logically makes sense to me is Onana's going to be here. Moshe says the difference is Hojlund. We never heard of him in Italy. Sesko is known, and Klopp rates him highly. Exactly, Mark. It's what's funny now. What is that? Other teams will say that Sesko's a dud. Okay, like everybody and their dog now will be saying that Sesko's a dud. We're gonna overpay for him. He's not worth the money. And again, people are valid in that opinion, and I'm not going to dissuade people from that opinion. People on here that think that, and that's absolutely fine. I think that it's really important to be tempered by other people's opinions and views. Sometimes you get a player and you think they're an amazing. There's so many players, like over the years, that you think that you're going to get and they're going to be world stars, and they end up being duds. There was Kesman that Chelsea signed. He scored his record was ridiculous. I think he scored like 100 goals in 100 games, and he was awful. We've had lows when we signed Sanchez. He was awful. I mean, we've signed. I think the ratio is something like, is it 60% of your signings are going to be good, and then the other 40 are not going to hit. So potentially, of all the signings that we've made, I can't remember how many we've made under Ineos. Have we made 10 or so? Potentially 4 of those are not going to be great. So you're not always going to have 100% hit rate. We never did. Fergie never did. He signed so many players, and a load of them were not great, and that's what happens. But you can almost sometimes know, or sometimes make an educated guess as who's going to be. What goalkeeper? Who would you buy? Play says Villa never loan. Martinez is 40 or nothing, which is too much. We should go Lemens, half the price, 10 years younger, small ego. So what mind working his way into the number one spot. Chillet plays. I think we're going to agree on something again here, right? So this is what I predict. So this is another little prediction, okay? And I'll be interested to see if this comes true. I think Onana stays, and the reason why I think Onana stays is because I don't think we're going to get him out of the door unless Saudi come in. So there's 2 ways that we get a expensive world-class keeper, is if Saudi come in and Onana goes. I don't think Onana's going anywhere. Okay, so I think we go and get Lemens, and that's who I would go for now. Okay, so I think Lemens comes in now. Onana maybe plays the first game of the season, and we hope he does okay, and we bring Lemens in, and then Lemens comes in and tries to push him out, and then next season, then potentially we may go and get another goalkeeper. So logically, this in my mind is how it works. So Lemens 17 million. Okay, if he comes in and he becomes a really, really, really good goalkeeper, we've got a really good goalkeeper there for 17 million. Onana gets pushed out the door, and we don't care, and then we get a cheaper number 2 in, and then we don't care. Worst case scenario, Lemens is not great, and then we can because we've done our business this year, we can go get a more expensive keeper. So I think we are going to go for Lemens. I think that makes logical sense. I think it makes playing sense as well. He's thought of really, really well. 17 million. I think he's a good keeper. He could be a bargain. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to park the goalkeeper till next year. As a Premier League 200. Sorry to talk about other topic. I was wondering why channel is not. Okay, I shall tell you for why. Okay, it's because, and that is a really, really good question. It's because I only started this channel about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, and basically, how it works is you've got to get your watch hours up to a certain time. Now that can take a while. So, but this channel is growing and growing and growing, and we're not too far off. So to bear in mind, this channel has only really been going for about 6 weeks or so. I think probably really only been going for really going for it for about a month. So watch hour wise, you need 3,000 watch hours to kind of get onto that like YouTube thing, and then you need 4,000, so you need another 1,000. Now to bear in mind, okay, it takes most to even get to 1,000 subscribers is mental. It takes a lot. The fact we're at 6,000 and after only a month, we're not too far off. We're not too far. So to get 4,000 hours, so for people to watch, it takes a lot. Now we're not too far away from that. So people watching, like, favorite, and subscribing. So for a young channel, thanks to everybody on here, we are doing phenomenally well. Like we are doing amazing stuff. I can tell you how long that we've been going for, actually. I think we've been going for about, I can roughly tell you how long that we've been going for. We've been going for 1 month. We've been going for a single month. We've already got 6,000 subscribers. Watch hours wise, we're not too far off. So, and it's all thanks to you guys. I've known people to try to do this, and they get nowhere fast. It is ridiculous how well this channel is. This again, we may never reach the heights of 3,000 hours, but thanks to everybody on here, the likes, the subscriptions, it is absolutely amazing. So the more we can get, the more that I can expand this, the more things that I can do. There's lots of things planned, but this doesn't work without everybody on here. So we are doing well, and I'm quite astounded by how well this has done so far, and this is all thanks to everybody on here. So again, the more you watch, the more people watch, the more this is out there. The more this channel can grow, and it's all thanks to you lot. So we are on the journey to 7,000. Let's hope. I'd love to be. I was trying to super chat, but I couldn't find it. Well, thank you for that. I'm sure I'm sure they will be available at some point, but I really do appreciate you going to stick in a super chat. I mean, that again, the fact that you've mentioned that and you're prepared to do that, it really means a lot to me. So I'm sure in the future, the moments that the super chat stuff is up there, and then what I would like to do as well is I'd like to bring your opinions in as to kind of where you'd like to see the channel go. Eventually when we come to that point, and when I come to that sort of point of what I want to do with the channel, Your opinions as well will be key, because I want to kind of keep it community based, and obviously to keep the channel there. But your thoughts and opinions will mean a lot to me, because you've helped me grow this channel. So I would definitely like to take your views and opinions on board as to what we do with the channel and where we do. So eventually, you know, who knows, but yeah, that's sort of where we are right now. But no, that was a very interesting side thing there. So goalkeeper wise, I think Lemens is next. I really do think that. So Tulip, I think that another little prediction of mine is that I think Annan stays. I don't think we can get rid of him, and I don't think we can take a book loss on him. So I don't think we can take a book loss on Anana. So I think what we'll do is, unless Anana can go, unless Saudi comes in for Anana, or we can get some sort of loan in for him, I think Anana stays. I think Anana will probably play against Arsenal, but I think we go get Lemens, and we get Lemens. It's almost a punt to nothing, right? With Lemens, it just means that we can take a risk. £17 million. He could come up and be fantastic, and if he's not, then we can go get a goalkeeper next year. So that's why I think we are with that. I think Lemens makes logical sense. More than that, we can easily go and get that deal done. Bring him in. Maybe he starts against Arsenal. Probably not. But at least then we've got that. We've got that. So Anana stays for sure. Sadly, our best is Lemens as a cheap alternative. Exactly. And that's where I think we are with that one. Rob says, big up JB and all in the chat. I think you're right on the goalkeeper front. Yeah, I just don't think we can get it done. I think a centre midfielder, I think if we get Lemens in, let's just get that done. Let's just get him in. And then what we can then do is then get that centre midfielder and focus on that. Now, I don't know if we go big or go home on that one, or if we go for a loan, but we definitely need another one in there. And maybe there might be another surprise. I don't know. But I'm not too sure about the centre midfielder next. I think Luis maybe as a loan deal. I don't know on that one. At worst, Lemens can be a backup, and he's our keeper for the next 10 years. Less than exactly that. He's so worth it. Anana, in my opinion, is so bad. Oh, JB, cheap CM or Lemens if you could only pick one. Which one? Oh, that is a very, very good question. So what do I think the most priority position is? I think goalkeeper. And the reason why I say that is because I think Anana is so bad. I believe he's so bad. There is no redeeming factors with him there. I think he's so bad. I think the amount of points that we'll lose because of Anana, compared to the amount of points that we'll lose not having a centre midfielder, I'd have to go with the goalkeeper. I think that with the amount of centre midfield players we've got, we can cobble something together for now. I think that with the goalkeeper we can't. I think that's where we're at. I think the goalkeeper situation is so dire and so bad. We'll lose so many more points with Anana being in than with the midfield. So I think we need Lemens in or somebody in. I think we'll lose less points with a different keeper. Doesn't mean to say that the centre midfield is not as bad. For me, the most important position next is the goalkeeper, because then what that then does for me is it gives confidence. It gives confidence in the back three, and then that confidence spreads in the whole team with that one weak link. Also, as well, to bear in mind, because Fernandes is going to play, we're only really missing out on one centre midfield player now. Between Mainu, Ugarte, Casemiro, I'm sure we can find one of those to kind of make it work for now, because Fernandes is going to play in the other centre midfield position. Whether I like that or not, that is what will happen. So we're only looking for one centre midfielder. I think we could cobble together for now. I'm not happy about it, but we could cobble together some sort of Mainu, Ugarte, something in there just to plug it for now. But that goalkeeper cannot be plugged. So Onana for me is that one position that needs to be changed, and that is where I would go next. Well, we're sorry, I've just joined. What's the up-to-date on Sesko? Are you still confident? Rob, I've been confident for the last 2 weeks, my friend. I haven't changed my stance on it at all. I've done videos, of course I have on it, but I've not changed my stance on it at all. I've been confident since for the last 2 weeks. My reasoning behind it is, for me, it makes logical sense. It always did. We've had talks with Sesko. We've spoken to him for a long time. He knows that we wanted him. We've been in talks with him. I believe we've been in talks with him for such a long time. I think the project for him, I think he's been sold on that. Newcastle, and I didn't know this at the time, even when I said, this is something I think that we will do, is that Newcastle had already been there. They'd already spoken to the player. They've already been to RB, and this was 2 weeks ago now. So if Sesko wanted to go to Newcastle, he would have gone. He would have been there. He would have been in that shirt. He'd already been there. Isak would be gone. Now, as we saw in the comparison there, you can see exactly why Newcastle have gone for him. So imagine getting Sesko for 70 million, very similar to Isak, probably slightly better when you come into the Premier League. And Isak you're going to sell for 130, and then you're going to buy somebody for 70 million. So you're going to make 60 million on a, and you can see why they're pushing. You can see why they're pushing that deal, because they want that player. Now, in my mind right now, the only way, I'm 95% certain, right? The only way this deal doesn't get done now is if Newcastle do something stupid. Is if they come in and they go, here's 100 million. Sesko will give you 400k a week, 500k a week. That is the only way that this deal changes. I think we've agreed this deal weeks ago. We agreed it with the player weeks ago. Newcastle have been an irritant in this, not the fans, nothing to do with the fans. I just think that they've identified Sesko, and as we've seen tonight, there's a reason why, and that is their last hope. For them, it's Sesko or bust. For us, it's Sesko or bust. And whoever loses this race knows that wherever they go next is an absolute is a fall off a cliff. So that is why they really want this deal done. So if you do go back over the video, Rob, there's some stats in there. Feel free to take a look at those stats in there. And I think what is abundantly clear, that Sesko is pretty much the best of the rest. Gyokeres, he's better than him at that age. Surprisingly, he's actually played a lot of Champions League football at 22. He's played 28 games. So the pedigree's there. The eye for goal is there. He's 22 years old. I genuinely believe more than ever, and this is where my opinion has now changed, is that I was of the opinion that Watkins would be the one to get. Now, looking at those stats and talking about it here and looking at it more, my opinion's been changed, and my opinion is that Sesko is the only deal that I would do. I can see now why they've gone for Sesko. I can see why some of the United board were pushing this deal hard, and I'd be pushing that harder. I think if I knew the facts and figures, and if I knew the stats on Sesko, I would be pushing that hard as well. So I think that United, there definitely is a line maybe where you don't want to pay money, but when Ekitike is going for that amount of money, Sesko is a bargain. Dem says, welcome. Luke Chapman says, my Northampton Town Football Club window, problem season, no striker. Short of very, very sad. But Luke Chapman, you are welcome here, my friend. I hope you are doing very, very well. My Northampton Town Football Club transfer window problem season. No striker, very, very sad. But that is sad. We've got Hojlund. I'm sure Hojlund would love to come to Northampton Town. I'd more than happily... You know what? I'd even argue that I would drive Hojlund down to you there, my friend. Are we talking real life, or are we talking like FIFA? Are we talking a football game, or are we talking real life? Northampton Town, I used to play with them on Championship Manager. No idea why, but I did. So, Chip Play says, Luke Chapman, didn't we loan Wheatley to you? They can have Hojlund as well. I'd be more than happy for it. I do think Hojlund would do quite well there, to be fair. Ethan Wheatley go. Ethan Wheatley. Where's he gone? Ethan Wheatley. He has gone to Northampton on loan. Yes, he has. That's a very, very good shout. He certainly has. They could have. You could have Hojlund as well as a strike force of Hojlund and Wheatley. Let me just have a little check as we're live. Anything else that's happening? No. 7 hours ago. Nothing there. Nothing new. Nothing new. Plettenberg. Nothing new. So Plettenberg, Florian, is still going under the. He's still going under the consensus that that Sesko still prefers a Newcastle move. I think he's just clutching at straws there. Let's see what I think. That is pretty much all that's going on at the moment. Yeah. So that was a. So what have we got, Luke Chapman? You have Wheatley on loan. He played great a couple of days ago. Amazing. I literally watched him. He played well, and I mentioned. That's right. Exactly. You did. Wheatley, I think he's going to be one for the future. I do think we have a good youth team. I think we have some good players in there. I think that's the Chelsea model. I think we've always had some decent players in there, but I think you're right. I think he's going to be a good. I think he's a good prospect for the future. I do wonder about OB, if OB would be worth a loan. I often think that, but let's see how he does this season. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there was a loan, maybe the next window. So let's see on that one. Sesko, OB, Wheatley, what a striker rotation. Exactly that. I mean, I remember when we had Greenwood, Martial, and Rashford, and those three were going to be the next big things, right? Wheatley is not a start level. He'd be a good backup. So, and let's see where we are in the next couple of years. So that was a whistle stop sort of. I'll keep Haaland. OB should be loaned. Yeah, I think one of those. If Hojlund stays, OB might be loaned, because I suspect that, as we saw, Amarin's going to play one of the number 10s in that role as well. So I'm not too sure or fully convinced yet what he's going to do with that striker position. But at least we know, I'm convinced that Sesko is going to come in there. That was a whistle stop tour of stats there. I think go back over the video as well. So for those of you who have joined, or for those of you who get a little bit of stick about Sesko, he's going to be bad or whatever else, just show people the video, look at the stats. Stats don't lie. Some people will use stats until it doesn't suit what it is they're trying to say, and then you can show them the stats and just 100%. I think Sesko is going to be an absolute star. You don't play 28 times in the Champions League and be awful. You can do, of course, but I think those stats speak for themselves. Rob says if we do go for a keeper, back it will be number 2 as discussed earlier, but this would mean that one would have to be removed. Hopefully Onana I think stays, my friend. I think Bienda's going to be the one who goes. Bienda will be the guy who makes way. I believe so. Heaton's back up and he's going to stay. So I think Lemens will come in as a number 2 with the aim to push Onana out. Onana will probably start against Arsenal, which terrifies me, but that's where we are. Unless something drastic can happen, I think if a Garnacho goes for money soon, if Hojlund goes for money, then I think we revisit that. But we have to bear in mind we are well under 2 weeks to go now. We are 12 days out from the first Premier League game of the season. They're not going to have had a pre-season with us as such. So we need to bear that in mind, and whatever we do, we need to do it fast. So we're going to see some quick deals, I believe. We're going to see Sesko is going to be soon. I can feel it. If not overnight, it's going to be tomorrow. I've got alerts on the watch. I am expecting stuff to happen. If it does, I will jump back on again to let you guys know what is going on. And yeah, so I think we've proved conclusively now why we want Sesko. And I completely agree that some of you may still think it's expensive, but when you look at the going rate for a striker, that makes sense. When you're looking at for the price of a striker, when you look at Isak, Liverpool are prepared to pay 130 million for him. They paid 78 for another striker, Ekitike. You got Gyokeres going for that amount of money as well, 69 million or whatever it is. So when you're looking at that and those numbers, and Sesko is better pretty much than all of those strikers when it comes to his numbers. Caveated that for the age, some players are older, but when we're looking at his career up until now, he's coming into the Premier League, he's better than all of those strikers. The only striker who's better than him right now is Haaland. Over the last 2 seasons, yeah, of course, but right now, Sesko is the one. And as Chip Play says, don't forget to hit the like button. It really pushes this out. 6,000. We're on our way to 7,000. Going to be on our way to 10,000. JB, in your own time, I will do 100%. I do enjoy a good stat, so I will be looking at those stats. Is it true that you've terminated Sancho's contract? Not that I've seen. It might become true at some point. I hope it is true. I've not seen that, but no, it doesn't make sense to. While there's a value in the player, and there is a value, then we may, if he doesn't go, which he will go on loan or something, but right now no, because there is a value, so it doesn't make sense to tear up his contract and give him some money right now. Oh, nice. I will certainly look up that. I think that is that's cool. I will definitely give that a look up. So I think pretty much unless anything's broken, because what happens is the moment that I put my phone down or the moment I go off to do anything else, that is when stuff breaks. Not me personally, but the news breaks. And there's nothing going on. I just one last little check through my... Now, what I do want to do, I think what is fair to say, so Ross Harwood, who is an independent and he's on X, he's the guy that I resonated with, right? So when I went and said, look, Sesko is going to come to us, he is the guy that it just made sense to me. So I've got to give him a big up, because I sort of saw that, and at the time it resonated, and I've just gone with him. I just, for whatever reason, it absolutely resonated with everything that I'd seen and thought about, and that was before Ornstein, before anyone else. So I've gone with him, and I genuinely believe that he's been right the whole time. So check him out on X, because I genuinely believe that he's the one that has been right the whole time. I don't know where he's got his info from, and even when the Slovenian guy was saying that he'd gone to Newcastle and people were going mad, he's stuck to his guns. I've been calm on this as well, and he's stuck to his guns completely. So that's a big shout out to him. Yeah, Rob, if you can help us get to 10k, that would be amazing. You know, the road to 7k is amazing. Obviously 10k would be ridiculous. If we could get to 10k, well, that would be unbelievable. You know, I think at 10k, I think then we are pushing the channel to get a lot bigger, and we can then do a lot more stuff. I genuinely don't see, with the start that we've had, we've been going for about a month, right? Why we can't be big, why this channel cannot be huge, why we cannot take over, and then I can do more stuff, and I can do more cool things, and it's all thanks to you guys on here helping me grow, having this amazing community that's full of just intelligent chat. We talk things out, we come here, we can tell each other, you know, things on here. You know, we had some sad news today about Tensu's, or sorry, it was Chief Herb's aunt who had passed away. You know, we start to know each other now. So, you know, when things like that happen, you know, I think it impacts us all, you know. So, you know, this is a community now where we actually start to care, and we actually start to know each other's opinions, and we're getting to know each other, and it's only going to grow from there. So it's I generally cannot thank you all enough. As I always say, and it's going to become a thing of mine, is that one thing you cannot buy is you cannot buy time. And you spending time with me, the minute, a second, means more than anything to me. And I pretty much always say it, but it's true. Like, you cannot buy time. And you've chosen to spend your time with me. You've chosen to talk to me, to be here with me about something that we all love. And you'll never know what that means to me. It does mean so much to me. So I'm going to go. I'm going to keep an eye, see what else happens. Maybe on my phone the next time if something breaks, and we can celebrate this together. Hopefully Newcastle don't put in this ridiculous bid that's going to make us all sad and make me look silly, but I don't think that's going to happen. Premier League 200, always feel good talking about our big club with you, JB. See you in the next one. Yes, pal, thank you so much. It makes me feel amazing talking to everyone on here. I look forward to it every single time, and it's a pleasure. Can't believe it now, but an hour's gone. It goes so quickly, I cannot tell you. And I feel very honoured to be here and have you guys in this chat with me. So I'll see you very, very soon. Have a good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever you're doing. Stay safe. You know, if anything does happen, let me know. You know, jump back on the stream. You know, we can all support each other in this thing called life. And obviously we can support each other in this wonderful club with you amazing people. And without further ado, of course, I'll see you on the next one. Take care, and see you guys very, very soon. Have a good one.